welcome back to the Block Party, episode 8, Brothers Debate, joined by the one and only King Wells. How's it going, my man?
Doing good, my man. Doing good.
We've had some exciting NBA basketball over the last week. We've gotten a little bit of NBA news in the last day or so, and tonight we have two of our final play-in games that we can look forward to. So, without further ado, I say we jump right into it and kind of just discuss the two play-in games tonight, and then just set ourselves up to kind of talk about a playoff preview. There's obviously been a little bit of news surrounding these play-in games. The biggest piece of news coming out within the last 24 hours is Paul George. But before we get into that, I think what we should probably start with is the first game of the night, which is going to be our Atlanta-Cleveland game, which will then ultimately determine who plays Miami against that 1-8 seed. So we'll get to Paul George. We'll get to that play-in game, but we'll start with the 7 o'clock or 7:30 slated game tonight, which is Atlanta-Cleveland. Then we'll move to the Western Conference game. So I'm curious on your thoughts on. Let's start with Atlanta-Charlotte. That game, what you saw from Trae Young, LaMelo, Atlanta. Atlanta didn't have John Collins in their rotation, but they still found a way to get it done, and done in pretty good fashion, I'd say. Almost looking like it was a blowout. And I mean, Trae Young didn't.
It was a blowout.
Trae Young didn't necessarily shoot the ball very well, but what do you think? What was the reason for Atlanta winning that game like they did? Were you disappointed at anyone on Charlotte's end, or do you think it was just collectively as a team they've kind of been in this situation before and they kind of took the step to get it done?
I think that's part of it. I think for sure that's part of it. I'll be honest, I didn't watch that game. And I know last week I was more on the Charlotte side of it. So I'll take that L there on the predictions for sure.
I think I was leaning Charlotte too. In all fairness, I didn't really know what to think. But yeah.
You know what? I'll tell you one thing though, and this is dumb. This is my fault, but I don't know why. I was assuming it was in Charlotte. And I'm not trying to claw it back or anything, but in my mind, it was in Charlotte, and I still feel like if that game was in Charlotte, I don't know if it's for sure a different story, but it's probably not a blowout for Atlanta. I'll tell you that much. But I think probably it's two things. One of the things you said already, Atlanta's done it at least a little bit more than Charlotte has, so they've got that gear they know that they can get to. And I think being at home for Atlanta probably just energized them greatly as well. And right. Charlotte showed their youth, right? I mean, it happens. Like I said, I didn't watch the game, so I'm not going to talk about it too specifically. But if I had to guess, I'd say that's what happened.
Yeah, and that's pretty much exactly what happened. I was able to watch both the play-in games from the other night, and it just looked like experience outweighed a young team. And I agree with you. I wasn't sure where the game was going to be played. I guess it must have come down to the Atlanta-Charlotte season series being what it was, because they were both sitting at 43 and 39. So,
you know what? Actually, I took a screenshot of this the other day. The tiebreakers, the way they worked them out, it's not as simple as we thought it was. It's not as simple as Atlanta's record versus Charlotte or whatever. Here, let me tell you what it is. This is nuts.
No, that'd be good to know.
There are 4 tie-breaking. If one doesn't solve it, there's 4 different steps to it. All right.
Okay.
So the first one is the head-to-head. So right. Atlanta versus Charlotte.
Right.
The second one is the division.
Okay.
Who did better within their division. The third one is who does better in the conference.
Okay.
And then the fourth one is who does better versus the playoff teams within their conference.
Interesting. So they add up the record of Atlanta and Charlotte versus Miami, Philly, Toronto, Milwaukee,
That's
Chicago,
right.
Boston, Brooklyn, whoever's the best record of all those.
If it gets to that level of tiebreaker, then yeah.
So it could have just been the Atlanta-Charlotte series, but just say that series was 2-2, then it moves to the second one, and then if the same division record moves to conference, same conference moves to...
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay. So they've set it up to a point where, because obviously at Atlanta-Charlotte, if they're 2-2 on the series, they got to move to something else, to something else, to something else. So I guess they ultimately determine. Now, my question would be, what if in a one-off world we get to a point where they had the exact same record in versus their what if we got to phase 4 and they had the exact same record versus those teams in the East? Is there anything that they would, how would that work for who gets home advantage? Does it go to then like maybe a randomizer, a coin toss? Is it something like that that would then have to come into play? It's very unlikely to probably get to that point
They
ever.
probably at that point they just ask LeBron James what he wants to do, right?
Yeah, and LeBron says, yeah, anywhere but Charlotte, anywhere
So
but Michael Jordan. No, but I'm curious because like I bet you like in the fine print they've got to have like discussed that at some point, right? Like they always kind of talk about variables and what ifs, but I think that'd be the ultimate what if. So yeah, I mean Atlanta to me looked like the much stronger team. I think the momentum honestly will carry over going into tonight. I as much as I love Cleveland, I just loved what I saw from Garland this year. Um, I don't know if Jared Allen's back. I don't know if we
I
have
think he is
word
back.
on that.
No?
I saw that he was planning on playing. I don't know how definitive it is. Because I think for me a big thing in that Charlotte series, as much as we don't want to give him credit, but Gordon Hayward has been battling this foot injury that's held him up for the last month or so, and he
Hmm.
wasn't active the other night. So I
Hmm.
I'm not saying that would have been end or be
Well,
all
a
game
veteran
changer.
presence would have helped them on the road,
Yeah, that's what
something
I'm
like that for
that,
sure.
that's what I'm thinking. And then we've seen Hayward have games where he scored like 40, 40, 35 points and just looked like he can't miss a shot, hits that little mid-range fadeaway, gets to his spot. And I think, yeah, just like that veteran leadership, that presence would have been big for them.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm very interested to see if Jared Allen slots his way back into the lineup. Do you think they would then just move Kevin Love back to the bench? Would be kind of the plan, and then because is
Oh yeah, for sure I would do that.
and
Yeah,
then kind of have Kevin Love running your scoring off the bench, and then probably start marking in at the three is what they because they went with that big
that's what
lineup
they've
all
been doing,
year.
I think, right?
Yeah, and they've been really they had a lot of success early on with that lineup.
Yeah, no,
So
Kevin Love off the bench just has a nice feel to it, you know. He's getting paid too much for a bench player, but at the end of the day, the experience that he has and his kind of skill set is just a perfect fit off the bench.
right, and it's not necessarily like he can't play 27 a night off the bench, or even tonight maybe they give him 30 a night just for that playoff experience. Like
Oh
when
yeah,
Embiid gets
I'd
hot,
even
right?
say that he can probably play more minutes if he comes off the bench. If that sounds,
Sure,
it
yeah.
doesn't
No,
sound too weird.
no, it doesn't. It's and especially with how they run that rotation, I could see it happening for sure. So
Mm.
we texted about this over the last few days, but just since we're now we're public and we're doing this online, what's your thoughts on this game tonight? Who do you predict to win Atlanta Cleveland tonight and go ultimately play Miami
Right.
for
It's
some?
in Cleveland, right?
I believe it's in Cleveland just because their record's 44 and 38, so they have a better record. So I don't think they
Yeah.
would go to any tiebreaker.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna go with Cleveland. I'm assuming Jared Allen's coming back, and I'm gonna go with Cleveland. Um, but I would not be surprised if I was wrong about this one again.
Okay. And you think that so like because my train of thought here is I love Cleveland and I've loved what they've done all year, but I just think Atlanta has a kind of a snowball effect going right now where they're just gonna
Like the momentum.
the momentum of just that Charlotte game and just believing in themselves and like this is who we have to beat one more game and we're in. And I don't know, like the fact that Trey Young didn't shoot the ball very well last game. I don't know what it exactly was. It was like
So who was scoring for them if it wasn't Trey?
they were kind of just distributing all over. Like Capella ended up Trey was feeding Capella down low. He was kind of like after like they would basically be pressing Trey Young right at the perimeter, and it
Yeah.
almost looked like they'd be doubling him, and he'd just make that extra pass to like Bogdanovich or Kevin Herter got really hot early on.
Yeah, Herder's nice.
DeAndre Hunter didn't hit a lot of shots, but he made his presence known. Like
Hey, I'm a big DeAndre Hunter fan, man.
yeah, I think he's got another level that he can get to. I don't think we've even seen like the full potential out of him
Oh,
yet.
he's young. He's young for sure.
Um, Gallinari, he didn't score a lot, but he just made his presence known. Had a couple big plays getting to the free throw line. So like it seemed to be pretty even distribution, which is good. Like it's probably what you want to see from a team going into the playoffs or play in. But I think the fact that Trey Young, didn't necessarily score the ball very well, I just don't see that happening again tonight.
I
So
mean, I think if Cleveland loses, it's because Trey Young just goes crazy.
right,
Because like especially if Jared Allen is playing, like that paint is locked down, man. They're not getting inside there. Capella's not gonna have a lot of fun tonight.
yeah,
If Jared Allen's playing, and that just kind of creates a recipe for Trey Young to go off, and we all know that he can do that. So yeah, if Cleveland is at full strength with Jared Allen, um, I think it's gonna take Trey Young Like I don't think Hawks can win without Trae Young just going 30-10 at least.
Right. Which he can. I think he's more than capable of doing, and I think the one thing working in his favor is that he didn't shoot the ball well last time. And if you look at just throughout this season, what he's done, he's rarely had a bad shooting night 2 nights in a row. So, or two games in a row, I guess you could say. But yeah, I think
It's gonna be a tough one.
what would be your prediction on the score? Do you think close game blowout? Do you think it's comes down to the wire overtime? Like any predictions on how the game
I'm
looks?
gonna say like not a high scoring game, so maybe not like in the 120s there, but I think it'll be around 100, and I think it'll be close. Um, I think it'll be close. The only way I could see one of them running away, like I don't really see Hawks blowing them out in Cleveland, um, and I don't really see Cleveland blowing them out either, unless they just lock everybody down, and Trae Young just can't get started, and that momentum you were talking about just works in the opposite favor and turns into quicksand for the Hawks. Like
Sure.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think it'll be closer than that, but that's the only way I could see it happening in a blowout.
And if Trae Young doesn't lead the Hawks in scoring tonight, who would be your bet for who's your bet
I'd
on
say
who would do it?
Bogey or Herder. Yeah,
Yeah, those two have seemed to be shooting the ball really well lately.
it's got to be an outside shooter.
Right. That's what I'm thinking too. With especially with Allen coming back, right? And I think Bogdanovich has shown us strides of he can look like a number one guy offensively at times. Now it's not consistent. It's not like you would rely on him being it.
I hear you.
But he's hit big game winners before in his career, like some big shots in Sacramento. He's had I think it was last year that stretch he had right before, I think it was like near the end of last season. But he was just absolutely on fire, couldn't miss, and I think he averaged close to 20 in that last stretch of the season.
Oh yeah,
so
like there's a reason they went after him.
Yeah.
I think they envisioned a mini Splash Brothers with Trae and Bogey.
Right. Which and then Herder kind of like is now looking like he can hit really like very consistently hit those big shots. Yeah, just a great piece. Smart defensively, like I think a little bit.
We had him on the Raptors.
I didn't realize
before
that.
He went to Atlanta. He started the year with the Raptors. I'm pretty sure.
Oh wow.
Whoops.
I mean, can't win them all. Okay, cool. So that's your prediction. Is you're gonna say Cleveland. I'm gonna probably say Atlanta, just because
keep it interesting.
Keep it interesting. What I saw from Trae Young too last game, I know he's capable of getting to another gear, and like I've just enjoyed watching him all year. Even though the Hawks have been kind of underwhelming, I think we've seen Trae Young is definitely the real deal here, and I'm very excited to just see if he can live up to the pressure tonight. And I also just think back to last year's playoffs when overcoming the Knicks. Who do they play in the second round after the Knicks? Forget, but they won
the Sixers.
That, right? Sixers, right? Yeah, and just seeing what we saw out of that Trae Young last year, I think that's playoff Trae Young is kind of upon us.
Yeah, that was a big deal versus Sixers.
Yeah.
So who's going to guard Trae tonight? Is it LeVert?
I was thinking that I was trying to because obviously like they probably want to throw Sexton on him if he's healthy, right? But I think
is he healthy?
No. I'm just saying. Yeah. Ideally, in an ideal world, if you had Sexton to go annoy Trae Young,
yeah, for sure,
right? But I think LeVert will get him a lot. I think you got to look at maybe a Okoro guarding him. Especially like I don't know if they can. Okoro I think usually comes off the bench if I'm not mistaken, but maybe they start him now.
Well, if Jared Allen's playing, I don't see why they fit him into that lineup.
True. So, but maybe you'll see Okoro kind of call his number and take it upon himself to guard him. But I think LeVert, man, Levert's one of those X factors that like even I like forget that trade happened near the deadline.
He's very under the radar.
And yeah, like if you even just look like he started off slow, but then in Indiana, like he got his game and his wheels upon him, and he could be a little bit of an X factor for the Cavs. I think even tonight, like he's the kind of guy who can just drop 30, and when he's not missing, right? So that's something interesting to keep an eye on. I'm a huge Darius Garland fan, man. Like I love his game. I think he's so good. I love the way
he looked great against Brooklyn, even though they lost.
Yeah, he really did, right? And I think it'll be interesting to see what he does tonight. And I think, having Jared Allen back is going to help him because he likes feeding Allen near the rim like that. Him and Trae both, love kind of feeding the big down low, so to speak. So that'll be a fun little kind of back and forth, big man, point guard, little pick and roll.
What was Jared Allen's injury?
It was a finger thumb injury or something like that. It was something on his hand. I think he might need surgery, but I think he's avoiding it. So that's the only
Yeah,
scary
avoid
thing.
that shit.
But you can always get that once
You can catch those alley-oops, no problem.
Yeah. All right, cool. So let's move over to the other play-in game. We do have Pelicans and Clippers tonight. Now, the big piece of news here, which is honestly for me the determining factor of this, like I really just don't see how they get this done now, is that Paul George has tested positive for COVID and is looking like he's out for the games tonight. So, yeah, to me, what I saw from the Pelicans last game, versus the Spurs, what I saw from CJ, like again, me and you have both said this last couple of weeks, but CJ's a bucket man. And not only that, like I don't know if you caught any of the highlights, but Ingram looked really sharp and had a couple really big dunks on I think it was Zach Collins he dunked on, and he went right at the rim to Pirtle, and Ingram just looked assertive. So to me, I don't see the Clippers getting this done and having the firepower to really take on Ingram and McCollum, especially without Paul George. Now, throw Paul George into the mix, I say there's a chance for sure. But yeah, before we get into that, let's start with what you saw from Minnesota and the Clippers. There's been a lot of talk about Minnesota and the celebration, the Pat Beverly thing. I don't know if you saw any of the memes of like Pat Bev jumping on the table and then crying, and he's
yeah. I think
clearly
people
got
need
some
to relax
resentment.
with that. Like, I don't see any problem with the way they celebrate it. I don't like. First of all, not just Pat Bev, but Minnesota. Think about this. Like, did you notice that crowd? How loud they were?
Yeah,
Like, these guys are dying to get back to the playoffs.
sure,
You know what I mean?
rightfully so, man.
Yeah, so I love it. I love what a fun game. I know I picked the Clippers, right? But
Right,
what a fun
it
game, man.
it was, man.
I'm borderline at the end. I'm rooting for like, how can you not root for the Timberwolves,
I
bro? Like,
know, right?
no,
And
I'm totally happy for them, and I'm happy for Pat Bev too. Like, he deserves it, man. I know,
yeah,
um, I love Patrick Beverly. Always. He's that player that everybody hates to play against, but when they're on the same team, they love him, right?
for
And
sure, for sure.
it is what it
Draymond-ish,
is. He
Draymond-ish.
does what he does, and no, I respect the shit out of him.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, those memes and shit. It's funny for sure, but
the one,
I
the
don't
one.
want it to like overshadow. Like, it is,
Yeah,
it was an impressive statement game. They need to follow it up, obviously, or else it doesn't mean shit.
right,
You know,
right.
that's the truth. But they got some momentum, and then with Paul George out, yeah, they got to take care of business tonight. Cat's got to play like a big boy.
All right. The here's my thing. If like Pelicans Clippers tonight, whoever wins this plays Phoenix.
Oh, yeah, it's Pelicans Clippers.
Do you? Yeah, sorry, I did
I got confused there.
not even correcting you, but just do you think anything along those, like, do you think there's any world in which we're living in here where this team even has a chance to beat Phoenix, Clippers, or Pelicans? Like, or is this who do you think Phoenix is? Phoenix is probably rooting for Clippers to win this. Sans Paul George, right? Like, they're probably hoping the Clippers win this.
Well, if Clippers win, they'll probably get Paul George back.
True, in time. I guess with COVID, it's only like a 5-day clearance now, too, right? So even if he misses maybe the first game,
unless he has like lingering effects and something that holds him back. But
sure.
I don't know. Honestly, probably if you're Phoenix, I don't know what they're thinking, but the right answer would probably be, I don't give a shit who it is, because
We're not scared of anyone, really.
they don't even, like, they should be looking past round one.
Right.
Pretty
confidently too, I think, with just their how they play.
I would say so. I would say so.
So would you say you'd probably lean Pelicans tonight just because of the Paul George COVID thing?
I mean, I think so, but I still think it's going to be a close game.
Cool. Okay. So
the Clippers are good, man. Clippers are good. They're like, especially with Paul George out, they don't have like the star, but they have so many good role players, and that adds up. That really does, especially in the playoffs. I know it's not quite the playoffs yet, but it is, right?
Right. And I think like Norm, has a chance tonight to really step up, and hopefully, like I would say Norm should probably lead this game in scoring for the Clippers. Like I would hope that he kind of takes it on himself to be the main scorer tonight. That's
yeah, I would say so. I think he's definitely got a big play tonight. Reggie Jackson too, a lot of responsibility. It's crazy we're talking about Reggie Jackson like that, but it's the truth. Yeah, Yeah, but I mean, you can kind of go across the board, right? Like Terrence Mann, I
Terrence
know he didn't
Mann.
have a huge offensive impact last game, but as soon
Hmm.
as he comes in the game, there's a lot of energy. Actually, he might start with Paul George out. You never know.
That's what I'm thinking.
Who
That's
else
what
am I thinking? Robert Covington always, like he could score 20, but he could score five.
right. Hard to
Across
know.
the board, man, it's gonna be a team effort. It'll probably be a great game. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think I lean towards the Pelicans, and squarely because of CJ.
Yeah.
Although I would say that they do need Brandon Ingram to be a different. Not that he can't, but they definitely do need him to be a difference maker
Right. Like they need him to be what
to win.
they need him to be what he was last game, because last game he looked assertive and he
Yeah.
showed up. Like he made his presence known. Big dunks, big highlight plays.
Uh,
Get to my
Absolutely,
spot, you know.
absolutely. Because quite honestly, like the truth of the matter is, for the Pelicans to be at their best, and I'm talking without Zion right now, Brandon Ingram should be the number one.
Right.
At their best, it should be Brandon Ingram being the number one. I'm not saying that's what it is on paper or anything,
Right.
but for them to like reach their next level, he has to be the alpha on that team.
For sure. I agree.
And I think he is growing into that, and I think CJ is doing a great job of kind of showing him the ropes. I mean, you know what I was thinking that trade reminds me of? It reminds me of um, CP going to Phoenix for Devin Booker. I know it's not quite the same, but
But like
like think of it that way.
giving a young guy a player to look up
Absolutely.
to, and someone just to like
Yeah.
have that it's so it like takes away this like weird leadership pressure off of Ingram,
So
and it
much pressure.
puts it into, CJ. You're giving it to a guy that wants that leadership role and wants
Yeah.
that pressure, and is kind of craved it more or less. Like the way I look at CJ is he's been more than capable of being a leader. Like, isn't he the new head of the NBA Players Association, like sans Chris Paul or whatever? Like,
That sounds right.
so ironically, comparing that two trades, it's like, look, these are clearly two guys that have big aspirations, that clearly see themselves as leaders. And I think, yes, CJ stepping into more of a leadership role has been the perfect time. Like, it's happened at the perfect time of his career, for him,
Yeah, I agree.
and for this team. So it does really feel like a perfect fit. Now, before we move off of the Pelicans as a team, I want to talk about the highlight play from the other night. It went trending on Twitter again. Anything this guy does will go trending on Twitter. But Zion Williamson, it's all over ESPN. It's all over the news the next day. But
They did like a dunk or
he's
something.
pre-game did a 360 windmill, and everyone's going crazy. But he looks still insanely heavy. People are like, I saw Shannon Sharp, who I would assume kind of knows weight. I was watching Undisputed. I typically watch it every morning, but
Mhm.
he basically said there is no way that guy is not 300 pounds right now. And do you think that, like, even with Zion doing these things and people saying it's meaningless, whatever, can we have any optimism with him, still being able to do like freakish athletic plays like this, or is it kind of just on us? Is it getting to a point now where we're like, this is showboating when you shouldn't be, and like we really shouldn't even be seeing anything from you until you bring your weight down, until you get to a place where it's safe and healthy to play like that? That's kind of seems to be the debate that everyone's talking about. Is like, is this just a lack of responsibility from the Pelicans from letting him kind of do this? Because from my understanding, there's been a bit of push pull on Zion thinking he's ready to come back, and the Pelicans straight up saying, no, we're not bringing you back till you're a reasonable weight to play NBA basketball, especially coming off of multiple, a knee injury with his meniscus, a foot injury this year that's lingered all year, a re-aggravation of the foot. So is there a bit of lack of responsibility, or do you think it falls on the Pelicans? Does it fall on Zion? And like, what's your thoughts on just like him still being able to do, those insane highlight plays, but not being game ready? Do you have any thoughts on that? And is your take on that in any way?
I mean, honestly, not really. Like, I see where you're going, um, but I feel like that's just like, and I see why, because there's really been nothing else to like dissect. But I just feel
Right.
like that's going way too deep into, um, I don't know how long that clip must have been, like 10 seconds or something.
Yeah.
Um, I see where you're going. It's a valid question, but I think either way, we don't get that answer until next year, anyways. Um, so at this point, it's hard to say.
Sure.
It's hard to say, but I would lean I would lean towards it's more positive than it is negative, because it is nice to see him. Nice to see that he's not, passed out with some potato chip bags all over on a couch somewhere,
Right.
right? So, I mean, it's positive in that way, and
Hmm.
probably it's good for his team
To see him out
to
there
see him. Yeah, like that's
wanting
kind
to
of
play.
energizing for them, I'm sure.
Right.
So yeah, I would lean towards it's more positive. One thing I'll say about Zion though is that I don't think the goal should be to get him back to like, you know, 250 pounds, let's say 260, back to 260 and being the uber athletic
Duke athlete that he
player that
was.
he was. Like, I don't think that's where he's gonna, like, I think that's, if he does that, I think he's gonna get hurt again.
Mm.
I honestly think that what he probably should do is get his body, like, trimmed down. But if you're at 280, 290, okay, fine. But then adjust your game a little bit to that as well so you can have some longevity. I know that's a little bit probably not what Pelicans fans want to hear because they want him to be like old school Blake Griffin, but it's not really the way the game is going anyway. And
Yeah.
I think he can be, if he tries to be more like
Versatile.
Draymond Green and less like, Blake
Blake.
Griffin, like I say, in the first year, I actually think that's better for the Pelicans.
No, I agree with you. I was watching the JJ Redick podcast, the Old Man and the Three, and
Mhm.
they were talking because obviously JJ is familiar with early Blake and Blake in that time frame, but
Yeah.
there's something about Blake Griffin in that first year, Zion in these last couple years, that anytime they have the ball in their hands, like the crowd is just anticipating something
Oh,
big,
absolutely. It's Linsanity, bro.
right? So right. So there's a level of hype and just like excitement that comes with him just having the ball in his hands. You think something big's gonna happen, and you don't really get that with a lot of players. So I hear what you're saying. Like, as much as Pelicans fans would probably be, like, it's a shame to say goodbye to that. Say good. I mean, look at
Well,
Blake's trajectory, and it's not like he can't go and do a crazy
yeah, like I'm
putback
not
slam.
saying never do it. I'm just saying kind of tone it down and let the game come to you. Don't like make sure you're not forcing it ever. Which to be quite honest, he doesn't really play like he's forcing it ever, really.
Yeah.
So I'll give him that credit.
Right.
Um,
And he shoots almost 62% from the field last season on 27 points per game. So he like when he is healthy and playing, he is the most dominant force near the rim. And I guess what's most important,
it's pretty impressive. Yeah.
to dissect from that is he's only 6'6", right? So that's
Yeah.
what's kind of crazy about it, and the fact that he can just be that unstoppable. Now, partially like his size plays a factor into that, right? But
Of course.
I think I, I was looking back and just looking at Zion footage from his days in Duke, and I think he's younger there, so it's like a bit of that is it's but it's not impossible. Like, get back to around that weight, because like he just looked like that uber athleticism at Duke, like that the skinnier frame Zion, I think would just suit and help him, and it help strain on his lower body, lower remedies as we keep going into the year. So even if you're shedding and you're not quite as physically imposing, I think like a guy like that is going to be pretty physically imposing no matter what. Even at Duke, he's pretty physically imposing, and I think if you look defensively at what he was doing in Duke, the potential that he can get to defensively if he trims down would probably outweigh any type of physical dominance that's coming or you're losing as a part of him slimming down a bit. So I think, yeah, the 280, 290 is probably the ballpark of where you want him to be. But definitely from the other night, the footage does look like he's over 300, and it is still a little concerning, man. Like, even just the way he runs, the kind of the wobbly run. Um, I think he's got to just kind of get that under control. And I really, as much as I love his game and I love his attitude and I love just you can just see that he loves the game of basketball. To me, there's really no excuse that he's still this size, this weight, when you're, you know, playing at that high of a level and you have the team offering you nutritionists, dietitians, meal plans. There's just no excuse to why you would still be in that 300 ballpark. I get like you're a big guy, you eat a ton probably, but clearly he's not eating the right stuff. Like you just wouldn't be that size unless you're eating pizza and things that are just going to cause you to gain weight. And I know that's like sounds so judgmental, but he needs to take that aspect of his game serious. Like, go look at guys like Chris Paul, LeBron, when they slim down. Like, this is why their longevity. This is why they're pushing their mid-30s playing like this. Like they got strict about their diet early on, and I think Luka kind of needs to get into that same kind of a mindset with diet and just being like to get to a new level. And they're still very young, and under 25. Like to think that you need to be on some sort of vegan whatever diet or a keto friendly diet. It's kind of unfortunate, but certain players just have certain builds, certain body types, and some guys put on weight more than others. So I mean,
For sure.
I look at a guy like Miles Turner, who has really, really, like, we saw him, I think it was either last year or the season before, slimmed down, I think, 20, 30 pounds, and he looks like a much improved player because of it. So I think guys like that need to understand that's a big part of the game and a big reflection on. And I think what makes it hard, too, a lot of the time is a guy like Zion or a guy like Luka. They're so dominant, or a guy like Harden, even, you could put him in this ballpark, but they're dominant regardless, right? So but I think when it just comes to injury and staying healthy, like it's that plays a pretty big factor into it that I think you gotta can't go unnoticed. Now, I do want to segue this into Luka Doncic.
Yeah, that hurts, man.
Utah series, first round series, obviously
Game 82 for fuck's sake.
Game 82. Now this makes me raise the question: is there a bit of responsibility or irresponsibility falling on Dallas for letting him play in that game? Or because the way I look at it is this, as much as you're like, oh, why is he playing? Why is he out there playing? I think also that the counter argument is you're trying to get him in, a bit of a momentum, a bit of a wheel turner here, and you want him to kind of carry that into the playoffs. So is there a bit of responsibility falling on Dallas for letting him be out there that long, maybe, or playing heavier minutes, or should they have maybe monitored him and only put him on? But it's easy to say now, right? It's easy to say now after he's hurt, but
no, I would still say no. I think it's a freak thing.
Yeah,
injuries happen, man. You can't
control.
I mean, the fact that it happens in game 82 is just such a punch in the gut for sure. But
for NBA fans and Dallas fans,
no,
for
man,
sure. But
you play. If you can play, you play. And you rest the guys leading up to the playoffs when it makes sense to do it or when it doesn't. But it's not like Luka's 34. Needing to rev it up and shit. Like the guy's 20, 22, 23.
Right.
He's good, man. He's okay. He's okay. It's I don't blame it on the Mavs. I mean, if before the game he was like, oh, I'm kind of feeling off a little bit, and they're like, no, you got to play. Yeah, okay, that's a difference. But I don't think that was the situation. I think
it's just the way.
It's just a freak thing, man. There's nobody really to blame.
How bad do you think this injury is? Are you worried about it, or?
Yeah, it sucks, man. Because honestly, I felt like I really like the Mavs. I really like the Mavs in the playoffs. So this hurts, man. I was looking forward to seeing that Magic come out. And it's not that I think that he won't come back or anything. It's just puts a little damper on my expectations, which maybe is a good thing. But it just sucks.
It does suck.
It's leading right into the playoffs. It just sucks, man.
I know. I feel that. Let's look at the one. Let's to stay optimistic here. Okay. I want to keep the optimism up. But hear me out. Let's go back to, I don't know I think it wasn't last year. It might have been bubble. But Luka rolls his ankle in one of those games. And he plays through injury. And the game after he rolls his ankle, he hits that game winner from the left corner, the first one that he's ever hit. And he looked unstoppable. So we've seen Luka play through injuries and not miss a beat. How worried are you, though, with this being a calf strain and, the fear of obviously things of that nature? How worried are we? Does this keep him out all series, or do you think he is the kind of guy that will push through and play through it?
I think he'll play. If he can play, he'll play.
Yeah, and
I'm not saying he'll play well for sure, but I think
he'll play if he can.
I'm not worried about him playing. I'm just worried about, maybe the Mavs just lost a big part of their chances to take the West and win the title even,
Yeah, it's kind of sad. But
no, to answer your question, I think he'll play. I think he seems like a warrior to me. I think no matter what, he'll play. And you know what? Luka Magic, baby. He's the type to go out and play and
drop
miss
40.
Fucking everything, but then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter score 30 points.
Sure. And
on a bum leg. So.
And we've seen him fight through that ankle injury and look like the best player in the world during the bubble, and then the last year's playoffs. He might have been fighting a couple injuries too. But
Yeah.
regardless, I think what the real question right now for Dallas is, when do they get him back? When are they confident they can put him on the floor and not risk anything long term and serious? And what is that? Can they survive and kind of fiddle through? Because maybe they go out there and people are expecting them to lose game one, and they have like a fantastic game one, and they do something magical and beat Utah. Now I probably say it's unlikely, but
Well, I think Jalen Brunson's going to show out, and I think Spencer
Dinwiddie.
Dinwiddie can guard Donovan Mitchell pretty well. I do
Right.
think Donovan Mitchell is going to go crazy, but
Sure.
I think Dinwiddie's he's a solid option to
Yeah.
cover him. So they're not losing anything there. It's just they're kind of finishing punches with
Yeah,
Luka.
for sure.
And really their main game plan, let's be honest, that's out the window. But as long as Luka comes back, let's say he misses the first game or the first couple games or whatever, it could turn out to be a bit of a blessing in disguise for the Mavs, because then the role players all kind of find their place
And then Luka comes
without
in.
Luka being there, and then he comes back, energizes everybody. So I mean, could work out really well.
Could be a nightmare though. Could be a nightmare. Like,
Oh, for sure, yeah.
It's
No, but you said you want to be positive. I'm trying to
no,
be positive.
no, for sure. I'm trying to stay positive in terms of Luka coming back and playing through injury and not missing a beat. But I don't know how confident I am if he comes back, game 3, game 4, and they're down 2 games, 3 games to 0. That's like, holy, that's hard to overachieve. But I mean, if, like you said, guys like Brunson, Dinwiddie can get them through. Now my thing is, like, when we go look at the bigs situation, right? No Porzingis anymore. Maxi Kleber. We got Rudy Gobert. Like what's that gonna look like? What's the front court situation gonna look like? What's the bench rotation gonna look like?
Well, I think Bertan's going to be pretty important.
Interesting. And what do you think about Utah and Bogdanovich? And he's looked a lot better. The other Bogdanovich, he's looked a lot better over the last half of the season. So could he be some sort of an X factor for Utah scoring wise if Donovan Mitchell, let's just say, is getting clamped, getting shut down, whatever it is? How likely do you think it is that we see like big playoffs from him?
Well, I don't just think it's likely. I think it's needed.
Yeah,
like it'll be necessary.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So let's talk about then Minnesota Memphis. This series is interesting to me. So Minnesota beat the Clippers. They're going to slide into play Memphis at number 2.
What a dogfight that's going to be.
Yeah. Am I crazy to say I could see an upset in this series?
I feel people trending that direction. I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon, but I mean,
how much did Memphis overachieve without Ja Morant? That's my question. Like, I don't want to say,
how good are they really?
Yeah, like, did they overachieve this season?
I think they're pretty fucking good, bro.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, my question is, I mean, I don't question Ja's ability or Ja as a player. I might kind of start questioning here Jaren Jackson's consistency offensively. Can Desmond Bane be as good as he was all season? Like, I have question marks about this team. I'm not going to write them off what they did. They're number 2 in the West. They won 56 games. You can't just really do that. It's not a fluke. But I'm not writing off the Timberwolves here. I think they have a ton of momentum. I think Patrick Beverley has looked unbelievable for them. I think Anthony Edwards is an absolute bombshell, just waiting to explode. I think D'Angelo Russell, we've seen signs of him where
he looks so good against the Clippers, man.
Yeah, and he can get to a point where he's just not missing shots. And I think, if I look at Karl Anthony Towns, I think if, when he wants to be, he can be. I think he can assert himself as the best player in this series. So I've always been very high on Towns. I've always thought he was just.
What do you think happened last game?
I think I mean, here's the thing with Cat. Like, I think Cat's the kind of player who, I think he's smart enough to kind of read situations. I think, but at the same time, I think to his downside, sometimes he doesn't assert himself quite enough. But I don't know. Like, I think he wants to give his teammates and a chance to shine, and I think he knows it needs to be a team effort. It needs to be a team thing. But I don't know. Like, I could really see Cat coming out very strong in this series, starting off and just looking like the guy. I could also see Ja Morant going to another level, playoff Ja, and going absolutely bananas. It's hard for me, man. I don't know. I don't really know who I'd put my money on in this series. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I think this is probably a 6-7 game series. That's my prediction. What would you predict this series goes to if you had to put your money on it?
I would, if I had to, well, my gut feeling is telling me it's going to be Memphis in 5 or 6.
Okay.
But I wouldn't be shocked if it went to 7. Wouldn't be shocked.
And what do you think needs to happen for the Timberwolves to get this done? Do you think Cat needs to establish himself as the best player?
Oh, not necessarily. To me, I think number one that has to happen is Pat Beverly has to just completely take Ja Morant out of the game mentally. Do all his things, all his antics.
Can he do that versus Ja? Will Ja let him do that?
I think he can. I don't know how long it will last, but I know he'll at least. I give him 1 or 2 games that he does. That's what I'm saying, 5 or 6 games. But I'll give him at least one, probably 2 games where he, gets Ja to stupid fouls or technical fouls or his whole thing. Like he's gonna get a couple games out of him probably.
Right.
But Memphis's role players are so good. So I think for me the X factor in that series is gonna be Ant, because if he can overpower the wing players that Memphis has, I'm talking Dylan Brooks and Desmond Bane.
Right.
Then I think that makes this series. Starts putting a question mark on the series. Or just that I'm not convinced that that's going to happen. But that for me, that's where it's got to be. That's where it's got to be. Like Towns, it's not that I don't think he can be that guy.
But you're saying Ant could be that guy, and that could be the reason they get it done is because of Anthony Edwards being that.
That's what I see more than it being Towns, because I mean, like, let's be honest, Towns is going to be guarded by Steven Adams, who he can take it, like he's a better player, but Steven Adams is going to make it. It's going to make it such an annoying game for Towns, right?
Yeah, for sure. He's the strong. From what I've heard, players say he is the strongest player in the NBA, and like when it comes to just pure physical strength, he is like by far like the strongest guy, the hardest guy to back down, the hardest guy to like go up and get a rebound against. Very underrated strength wise, like just in terms of like his physical.
I don't know if he's underrated. I think that's like common knowledge.
I think just like it's one of those things where you think like who's the strongest player, like Zion, LeBron, like these big guys. You just kind of leave out like a Steven Adams. Like I know like we kind of see him as that gritty rebounder, but like from what I heard, it's like it's a lot of pain that comes along with banging down low with Adams. So I mean, yeah, I know what you're saying. Like it's pretty known thing now, but yeah, I think like I tend to forget that. I think people tend to forget that how strong he actually is.
What's Jaren Jackson's situation right now going into these playoffs?
I think he's healthy. Are you talking about health? Yeah. Are you talking? Yeah. I'm pretty sure he's healthy. I didn't really know or hear anything about him. Maybe like dealing with anything, or maybe I haven't seen it or heard it. But I think he's good to go. From my understanding,
it's going to be interesting.
But that could be the X factor on Memphis's end even. Like, could be Jaren Jackson.
Because if they could get away with playing Jaren Jackson on Cat,
right.
Then that really changes how they play, and that could be fun.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with you though. I think Edwards could do something kind of magical here.
Man, he looked good against the Clippers.
Yeah, he really did. Man, like now that we've seen this last year's draft, right? Like the top 3 out of that draft, I think clearly have established have been Ant, LaMelo, and Tyrese. I mean, the sky's the limit for these guys, but how are you feeling about Ant being that number 1 pick? I think a lot of people were kind of like, Ant's great, probably should have been second, LaMelo probably first, but like, do you think the Timberwolves are pretty happy with what they have in Anthony?
Oh yeah,
how could you not be? Right?
I don't think they would swap for LaMelo, but like I don't think Charlotte would swap
LaMelo for Ant.
Yeah, so I think everybody's happy except for the Warriors.
Right. Yeah, that's tough, man. Like even just I
mean it is, but you see where they tried to make the smart move. I think they got a little full of themselves there.
Yeah, you make the smart move, but sometimes it's like you just got to take the best player available and ask questions later.
It's up.
But easy to say now in hindsight, right? But yeah, no, I'm with you. I think Timberwolves are pretty happy with Ant. How could you not be? I think Charlotte's pretty confident and happy in LaMelo. But those two have really just outperformed like what I thought they would be at this point of their career. I didn't see them second year in the NBA being this good. I don't know if you did, but I really didn't see it from either of them being this level. this early. So
Like when you say this level,
like
what do you think
I
about?
would have expected this kind of a season from both of them in year 3. So they're beating their timeline in terms of, now, mind you, like if we go, LaMelo's rookie year was pretty phenomenal. Ant started a little slower, got hot, but from what we've seen this year of just like offensively what they're capable of, what they're doing, I would have seen that as more of a third year kind of trajectory for what I just predicted of what from both of them. And this is me thinking, pre-draft, just seeing them as prospects, but yeah, I would say they're ahead of their timeline, at least the timeline I would have given them, before the draft. So, so like kind of scary to think what these guys could do in year 3. Because even look what Jaw's done in year 3, taking a bigger step forward. Who's to say that LaMelo isn't capable of doing that next season, or Ant
I think they both will. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it turned out to be a pretty fun kind of top heavy draft a little. Like Tyrese went a little later there, but I think for as much people were saying it's a weak draft class, like a lot of star power out of those first 1 and 3 picks, like, right. But yeah, it'll be fun to watch. I'm excited for that series. I'm excited for the Timberwolves as a team. Like I just really want to see them have some success in the playoffs. I don't know who I'm necessarily cheering for because I love Ant, I love Jaw. I think I'm a big Cat fan, so I would love to see Cat get some playoff run. So that's probably who I would want to see go forward. But at the same time, I wouldn't be mad if Jaw absolutely goes crazy and we get to see a Ja Morant playoff version that we're kind of all expecting. But yeah, I think I call me crazy, but I'm gonna say Timberwolves in 6. I'm gonna go outside of the kind of the Vegas odds here and say Timberwolves upset Memphis. And it's not because I don't believe in Ja. It's more I question the consistency of guys like Bane and Brooks shooting the ball, and like I question that side of things. And I love just like Pat Bev in the playoffs. I love the firepower that Minnesota has. I love D'Lo. The idea of D'Lo getting hot. Look, I'm just thinking now, even D'Lo in that first round playoff series when he was in Brooklyn, how good he looked. So I think Timberwolves are a bit of an underdog here, but I think they can get it done. I think they have what it takes to get it done. I actually really believe they could do it, and don't think it'd be easy. I think it's a 6 or 7 game series, but I think they can get it done. I truly believe that. So it'll be fun to see.
All right.
It'll be interesting to see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they come out and lose in 5, but yeah, I truly think they have the firepower to get this done, and I think we're going to see a big playoff series from Cat. I really do. I really think Cat's going to look like the best guy on the floor, and that's what I'm most excited for now. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my prediction going into the series. Okay, so we talked about the play-in games, the first round kind of established here. I wanted to pull up this article on the Raptors.
Here we go.
Because there was, maybe I can find this. It was ranking the best players. Here, we'll pull this up. Raptors basically, it was ranking all the kind of X factors of this series.
I can tell you mine.
But yeah, I'm curious to see like.
I have a lot.
Yeah, give me them, man. Give me them. So what's the biggest X factor on Toronto? What's the biggest X factor on Philly? And what's your prediction?
Where do you want to start?
Start with Toronto. Who's the X factor on Toronto?
Yeah.
Then go to the X factor on Philly.
All right. So
then give me
this is my cheap answer.
Okay.
My cheap answer is OG is the X factor on defense.
Ooh.
And Scotty's the X factor on offense.
Cool.
Then I'm like, honestly, I think Fred VanVleet is the X factor.
Yeah, me too. I was gonna say
because if he can really, all that he's got to do, and it's a lot, but what he has to be able to do is hit those like pull up threes when they starting the action early, and just like take those big 3-point shot, those bombs, and if he's hitting those, I really like our chances. I really, really do. Like whatever else happens in the game, if Fred VanVleet is like dominating shooting like that,
yeah,
I really, really like those games. It's just that with his knees, he's had trouble with kind of asserting himself in the last couple months.
Right.
So that's for me. I don't want to say he's a question mark, but I think Fred VanVleet's my X factor overall.
I like it. Now go to Philly. Who's the X factor on Philly?
Man, am I crazy to say James Harden is the X factor
No,
for
you're
Philly?
not. You're not. I think Harden's going to need to play at an exceptional level to actually. And to me, I think that's the scariest thing as a Raptors fan. Is I think that
Yeah, I agree.
If James Harden, as much as like, I don't question what Embiid's gonna do. I think we know what Embiid's gonna do. He's gonna be Joel Embiid. But I think if James Harden gets to a spot where he just cannot miss the basketball, he is feeding Embiid down low. I think that's when we're gonna, as Raptors fans, we're gonna be a little bit scared from what we see because we've seen James Harden do it. I don't think the James Harden playoff thing is. I don't think there's as much smoke where there's fire kind of as there people think there is there. And I really think that James Harden is the kind of guy that when he gets cooking and if he finds a way to dissect your defense, like he's pretty hard to stop. Now, the Raptors defense is a scary perimeter defense.
That's what I was gonna
It's
say, man.
not the most like walk in the park thing, and it's probably not the most ideal defense for them to be playing in round one.
I would say the Raptors are the best built to handle the James Harden.
Right. So that's where it's like, okay, can he do this? And his numbers have been lackluster.
It's not going to be Fred VanVleet guarding you. It's going to be OG Anunoby.
Right.
First of all.
Yeah.
And then you want to get that switch, and you got Scotty or Pascal, and it's like
right.
Have
So
fun with that.
Like, that's going to be now.
It's a lot of step backs. If he's hitting them, it's dangerous. But if he's not, I think he's going to get in his own head real quick.
Sure, and I could see that happening too. Now, they always say good offense will beat good defense in the NBA because it's just that kind of a league where it's like talented off. Like we've seen Luka take a shot from the corner, three guys running up to him, Pat Bev in his face, and he hits the shot, and it's like, okay, there's nothing you could have done but foul, literally. But can Harden do that consistently? I mean, look, man,
we know he can.
We've seen Harden do remarkable offensive things in Houston, like absolutely insane, to the point where you're like, Draymond Green runs out, hits him on the and one, and he hits it. Big games versus Golden State, big by himself. Big games on the Nets by himself when KD and Kyrie are out. Toronto is like the ultimate challenge, especially on the perimeter defensively, right? So it's gonna be kind of a fun little clash of titans here for a first round matchup. It is like, I think, going to be one of the most exciting, fun matchups of the first round.
It's gonna be a war.
I really believe it's going to be like a battle, right? So I'm pumped for it. I think the two series to watch, the first round series, like if I'm just looking at the playoffs on kind of paper here, I think the must-watch series out of this first round, it has to be between Philly and Toronto and Boston and Brooklyn. Like I really think those two series are going to be the most fun to watch in round one. And that's me backing away as a Raptors fan and just saying, on paper, if you look at this, like you got Philly and Toronto, it's just going to be back and forth. It's going to be scrappy. And then Boston, Brooklyn is just the narrative, the Kyrie thing. That's just going to be fun.
Yeah, I forgot that Kyrie was in Boston and all that. Then he's going back to Boston. It didn't even click until a couple of days ago. I heard somebody saying, boy, that's gonna
storyline of that's going to be really fun. The fact that, I think the other the fun thing of that series is like you still got Horford, Tatum, and Brown together, right? Like that's the same team that he was on, and they didn't have him in the playoffs, and they went to the conference finals. So there's a bit of,
and you got rumblings about Time Lord coming back too.
That could be really big for them.
That would be huge.
What's your prediction on that series? Do you think the Nets win that, or what?
Well, hold on. For that series, yeah, I mean I'm gonna stick with the Nets because of Kevin Durant, but I could see this being the series if Boston wins it that elevates
them to the next level.
Well, specifically Jason Tatum into superstar status. If he's not already, I get that a lot of people say that he is already, but if he can do that, if they can beat the Nets, they're going to be thinking, not that they're not, but they're going to be thinking championship.
Yeah, why wouldn't
everybody else will as well?
Why? And the confidence you'll get from beating Brooklyn in that round one, right? Like it's going to give you a lot of confidence. Now, I know you're a big Jaylen Brown fan. Could you see him coming out and being the best player on Boston in the series? Is there a possibility of that?
Yeah, definitely. I only said Jason Tatum because I know that's what most people would say. Like I always like Jaylen Brown a little bit more than Tatum myself, but it's going to take both of them anyways. It's going to take both of them.
Right.
It's just that Jason Tatum, I think, is better suited to take those big shots at the end of the game. You know what I mean? Where I think Jaylen Brown kind of affects more of the game
defensively
in separate ways throughout.
Sure.
right?
Sure. But you think
But
Tatum's got to be
Jason
the
Tatum,
guy?
you can see him hitting those big turnaround,
Y-
one-footed
Yeah.
fadeaways to win
Right.
the game. I could see that happen all day.
Right. Right. And yeah, I remember in the
And
first.
I hope Kevin Durant's guarding him too.
Yeah, that's gonna be a fun matchup to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think, like to me, like we talked about this last week, but playoff Kevin Durant's a real thing, and there is no doubt in my mind that if Kevin Durant can stay healthy, that he will not be 30 a night and an absolute problem for any team he plays. I don't think anyone in the league is really capable of shutting down Durant. It's just, can you contain him a little? Can you find a way to get the ball out of his hands and give it to someone else? Now, obviously, a guy like Kyrie is like, well, okay, but I think that's something we gotta discuss, or at least it's worth mentioning. Is can Ben Simmons come back for this round one? Do you think that's possible? Because from what I'm hearing, Brian
And
Windhurst reportedly says that game 4 or 5 he could be back, and could that be an X factor of defensively on the wing for them? Could that be something that gets them and
absolutely, it would be a
elevates?
factor. Absolutely, it would be a factor. But I'm saying it would be because honestly, with Ben Simmons, I'm so sick of hearing about this guy.
Same.
Like,
I'm disappointed in him, man. I'm
I'll tell,
disappointed
no,
in
disappointed doesn't even get to the start. My one of my fears right now is that Ben Simmons can call himself an NBA champion at the end of the season,
right,
if he doesn't play.
right.
Like, will there ever be a less deserving
And
NBA champion ever in history or any sport?
I mean,
You know what I mean?
if
Like,
if
just
he,
thinking that he could wear a ring,
yeah,
it makes me angry. And
I
I
know.
don't get angry very often.
I know what you're saying. Now, if he comes back in this round one and absolutely looks like unbelievable on defense and elevates them and plays every single game in the playoffs after that, and then I'm like, I'm not gonna hate
Best
on him.
case scenario. And yeah,
Yeah,
no, he has to do that, but he has to do that.
right, right. That there has to be, but I know what you're saying. Like
Like, why isn't he playing?
I know. Well, from what I've heard, I don't know how much falls on Brooklyn being extra cautious. I don't know how much falls on him. Like, I don't know if it's mental. Apparently it's a back
Dude, you
and leg
had
thing.
the whole year.
I know. I know.
The
I
whole
agree,
year.
man.
You're telling me you weren't getting in shape the whole year, keeping in shape? Like, I don't know what's going on. There's probably something I don't know and whatever,
And
but
we saw him
I don't want to
posting.
be insensitive, but like, come on, man.
No, I know what you're saying. And to me, it's that this is like this criticism is deservedly so because of how good he
I would
is
say.
and how good he is. It's not like we're out here saying this because we think Ben Simmons is a bad player. We've seen what Ben Simmons is capable of doing defensively, running the show, being a facilitator. We know the guy's capability.
No,
6'11"
he
point
could
guard.
be a difference maker, but
Yeah.
everything else has just completely overshadowed my feelings towards Ben Simmons.
Yeah, and I feel that, and I think he's gonna have to gain and earn a lot of people's respect back. Now, how fun would it be? Like, again, I don't want this to happen, but if Philly beats
If they see
Toronto
Philly,
and they see Philly, that could be
I wouldn't mind
pretty
Philly
fun.
beating Toronto just for that possibility
Yeah, right. Like
of him going and having to play in Philadelphia.
that's to me would be the one positive I could take away out of
Oh
Toronto
man,
losing, and if they go play Brooklyn next or whatever, like that would be pretty fun to watch, right? Ben Simmons going back in that arena, having to touch the ball, seeing what he can do, maybe like seeing if he can live up to the moment. But I don't want that to happen. At the end of the day, I want Toronto to beat Philly in the series. I want Toronto to go as far as they can and ride this wave of like championship mentality, having champions on our team. I'm not putting it past Toronto. By no means is this going to be a cakewalk for Philly. I don't think. And I did want to talk on kind of what Shaq said, and then the counter thing with Charles Barkley.
yeah, but he took it back.
Did he take it back? I didn't see that.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, you better
like
take it
in the
back.
same show.
Yeah, I mean, I think he kind of realized how foolish.
He literally said rescind that from the like. Come on, man.
Yeah, but
It was a terrible take,
it's a
but
terrible take.
stand behind it. Come on, dude.
Charles Barkley was like this. Which I think Charles Barkley said, "I'm scared for my 76ers because they're
Yeah,
playing Toronto."
well, I think, you know what, one thing that I'm noticing, and like obviously I'm a Raptors fan here, but one thing I'm noticing is I think it's starting to be like the sexy thing to say is that the Raptors are going to beat the Sixers.
Right.
And to be honest, I'm not loving that because I
You like
really
being the
like the
underdog,
idea
right?
of being the underdog,
Yeah.
going and playing game one in Philly. Like, when's the last time we played a game one not in Toronto and didn't have that and didn't lose it and didn't have all that? You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Yeah.
so
Right.
I really like the non-pressure there, and I think that Toronto, I would go as far as to say that they probably should win this series, but you could say the same thing about Philly too.
Yeah.
And as long as Philly has the star power in this series, and
Right.
you can't forget about that. Even if Embiid has not a super track record playing against the Raptors this year, or James Harden doesn't have a super track record of just playing basketball in the last couple of weeks or so. It doesn't look super. It doesn't look great. But they're still James Harden and Joel Embiid, and
Right.
like you said, right? Great talents tends to trump, or great offense tends to trump great defense. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's always in the back of my mind there.
Yeah. Yeah. How could it not be, right?
And it's a real thing.
One thing that's worth mentioning is Matisse Thybulle. I don't think is going to be eligible to play because
In Toronto,
I don't think he's not. I think it's the
he can
vaccination,
play in
right?
Philly, but he can't play in Toronto.
Now, let's say Toronto gets by Philly here and has to play Brooklyn. It's kind of crazy to think, but Kyrie Irving wouldn't be able to play in any Toronto games, right? And if
Is
we're,
that who we would play next, though?
I don't know if
The finals,
do we
the
play
Eastern Finals.
Miami
Yeah, I
and
think we play the winner of Miami and
okay,
yeah,
interesting. Now just say we somehow
which I
get
like too, by the way.
yeah
What a series that would be.
yeah Lowry back in Toronto, be fun, eh?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's got to be worth mentioning. Like if it got to a point where it was Brooklyn Toronto Eastern Conference Finals, then let's just say no Kyrie in half your games. Like that's not nothing, bro. That's pretty big deal.
It's a big deal.
Now, is there any other situation where Kyrie can't play certain road games, or is it just Toronto and Canada's mandates?
It's the international rules, right?
Right. So, but like, there's no other situation where he wouldn't be able to play other than Toronto.
I don't think so.
Okay. So, hey, we'll take the we'll take the advantage. Like, we'll take it. It would be one reason for people to
Whatever.
discredit any type of win or getting into the finals, but fuck it, like, a title's a title. I'll take it.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, hey, man. I think I honestly, I'm looking at this right now. The way I'm just looking at this playoff picture is I still think Milwaukee. Just something about no one talking about Milwaukee kind of right now, and just like them flying under the radar and just being that strong and that good of a team. Like I could really see Milwaukee just going back to the finals, going back to the conference finals.
Well, especially since they have a tune-up series against Chicago.
Right, and that's gonna be. I could see that being over in 5. Quite honestly,
that's what I'm saying. It's gonna be a quick one.
No Lonzo.
They don't have to travel. Like how close Milwaukee and Chicago are. Like there's not much travel going on there. It's not gonna be hard on them.
If they can get that series done quick, watch because then I guess Toronto Philly is they're playing
Toronto Philly will go to 7, and then we're gonna play Miami, and then we're gonna go to 7 with Miami too.
Right. That's the thing. So that's going to be interesting to see Milwaukee have that rest, have that schedule, have this first round matchup that looks like the most favorable. And it'll be interesting to see them fly under the radar maybe and just kind of get there, quietly again. Could definitely be a possibility, I think, that you can't really count out. The other thing I want to mention is, Golden State Denver, we didn't really talk about it, but the more and more I think about it, the more confident I am. From what I'm hearing, Steph Curry is probably playing game 1. And it gives me a lot of confidence. I think Golden State, my prediction on this is now Golden State's going to come out swinging first game and look really scary.
I feel that. I hope so too.
That's kind of what my gut's saying. Is as much as I love Denver, just not being able to get Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. back for the playoffs, it's looking like. Jokic is obviously incredible, but I just think Golden State, when they're clicking on all forms, I could see them just truly believing like, we're the best team in the league still, and we're going to show you why we're going to get to the finals again. And I think that the hardest team for them to overcome right now is probably looking like Phoenix, sans Luka, if Luka's not healthy. But I could really see Golden State riding that wave all the way to the conference finals for sure. So that's kind of what I'm thinking with that series. I'm pretty confident Golden State gets it done. I think it'll be a fun series to watch, but I don't see Denver beating them in the first round.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, bro. I mean, we touched on pretty much all of the playoff series. We touched on the play-in games. We obviously have 2 big games tonight. That'll be exciting, kind of determine the final seeding here. Next week, when we come back on Friday, we'll probably be, 2-3 games into the playoffs at that point?
At least.
So we'll have a pretty big sample size. A lot to talk about from what we've seen, and we'll continue this just going throughout the playoffs, and just probably probably be able to have a lot to talk about in terms of stuff next week. Is there anything you wanted to add? Anything I've missed? Anything we didn't touch on? We went through our awards last week, so I don't think we need to repeat ourselves to do that again. But I really want to talk about the playing games, what we've seen, and what it's kind of looking like now. And then playoffs, I believe, start tomorrow, right?
Oh yeah. So what's your call for Raptors Sixers game 1 tomorrow in Philly?
Game 1 in Philly. Oh man, this is a tough one, bro. This is a tough one. I want to say Raptors win it. I think it'll be close, but I could see the Raptors
set the tone.
Yeah, set the tone off strong. Big first game.
That would be so strong,
right? So I got a good feeling about it, but then I don't know. I think I'm with you that I think we're really going to just need to see what James Harden does tomorrow. I think if James Harden comes out in the first quarter and just isn't missing, it might be a little scary for the Raptors. But I think if it's looking like he's missing shots and we're shutting him down early, I think it's the Raptors game to lose at that point. But I think it's really going to come down to James Harden. That's what my gut feeling tells me, man. Like, I'm in the same boat as you. I ultimately see him being the X factor on Philly. Now, when I go to Toronto side, who's the X factor for me? I gotta say Scotty Barnes. I think if Scotty Barnes just comes out with that energy, scores like 10, 15 points in the first quarter, something big, that could really set the tone for Toronto. And I also want to say, Van Vliet too. If Van Vliet can just get back to all-star form, what he was looking like midway through the season, early season, that could really be a big... There's a lot of X factors, man. There's a lot of X factors in this series. There's a lot of stuff that could change in like the blink of an eye. So.
You know who's an X factor?
Who?
Doc Rivers.
Interesting. Yeah. Are you thinking rotations? How he counters?
If he makes adjustments, it's going to be tough. But he's not very good at making adjustments.
Right, and we've also seen him like kind of try stuff that doesn't work, and it's like, yeah, what were you thinking there? Like, there's been times where I've questioned, like, what are you thinking exactly here? But like, maybe something happens, Harden's not hitting shots, and he panics and has to do something, make an adjustment. Maybe Scotty Barnes is just getting to the paint and like no one's stopping him, and we're like, okay, like maybe they gotta adjust, and he can't throw Thibault in there, so he's gonna have to adjust. And maybe they're playing Maxey a lot, and like maybe they kind of Maxey comes off the bench, but then they end up playing him 36 a night. Like, there could be a lot that happens here that, give and take, and I mean, I'm pretty confident in Nick Nurse as a coach and his adjustments, and he's the kind of guy who will coach on the fly and put guys in that like haven't played in God knows how long, but then he puts them in, and it's like, wow, that looks like a pretty smart move. So yeah, man, I think it's going to be a game of chess between the two coaches for sure, and I'm pretty confident though Nick Nurse kind of outsmarts Doc Rivers in terms of matchups and adjustments here. But I really just don't know, man. Like, as much as I want to say Raptors win this first game, like, that could also see Philly coming out so strong and not missing a shot and being like, okay, well, damn, like, we're in for a bit of a battle here. So it's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be fun to watch. But I'm so excited to see this Philly Toronto series. Like, I'm just so pumped for it. I'll be watching every single game. I know you will be too, of course. And I'll probably want to watch Brooklyn Boston as well.
Of course.
Those are the two series I'll probably be checking on the most. And then in the West, it's probably going to be, for me, Memphis, Minnesota, that I'm really paying a lot of attention to. I think if Luka was in there, Luka's must-see TV, but if he's not playing, I'll probably be okay to catch up on highlights till he's in. But yeah, Luka, if he's in there, it's like, to me, it's must-see TV. So that would be the other series I'm pretty excited for. I think Golden State, too, will be a lot of fun. I kind of want to see the Splash Brothers back in the playoffs again together. You're definitely going to want to check out a couple of those games for sure. But yeah, just excited, man. I'm excited for the playoffs. I'm excited for what we have coming next few weeks. I'm excited to, hopefully set the tone early, Toronto. And just if we can just, come out banging, like, I think that's going to be really, really important. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting.
Right.
We're about an hour 10 here, so we'll probably cut. Anything you want to wrap? I think we covered most of it. I don't think there's anything we've really missed. Is there anything you wanted to mention that I didn't really give you a chance to talk about, or is there anything that you wanted to touch on, or you feeling pretty good?
I think we're good, bro.
Cool, bro. So yeah, let's run it back next Friday around 3:00. We'll have a lot to talk about. Some playoff. We'll have some playoff like series, standings at that point, and yeah, we'll keep it going from there.
Sounds good, brother. It's a block party, baby.
Block party. All right. Have a good one, man. Take care.
Peace.